Isaac tore through stories at a speed the world around him simply couldn't keep up with. By the time he was 11 years old, being a child prodigy, he had already skipped multiple grades at school. Most of the kids around him were older, bigger, and much louder. Isaac was usually the smallest person in his classroom, and outside of books, he never really seemed to know where he fit in. So he read constantly adventure stories, science fiction, anything he could get his hands on. The problem was, books were hard to come by. The family didn't have extra money lying around for novels, and the local public library had strict limits on how many books a child could borrow at once. It was a frustrating problem for a kid who consumed stories almost as fast as he found them. Eventually, Isaac decided to solve the problem himself. One grey, rainy afternoon, Isaac sat in his room finishing the latest Rover Boys adventure story. He turned the final page and immediately, naturally, wanted the next one. But the library was closed for the day. He didn't own the next volume, and his parents certainly weren't buying any more books. So for a while, he just sat there, irritated, staring at the back cover. Then, he grabbed a cheap school notebook and a pencil. If nobody was going to give him the next story, he would just write it himself. He started inventing his own continuation series called The Greenville Chums at College and quickly filled page after page with new adventures. Years later, Asimov would say something fascinating about this moment. To his 11-year-old brain, writing didn't feel very different from reading a story he hadn't read yet. He genuinely wanted to know what happened next, and the only way to find out was to write the story himself. A few days later, he handed the notebook to a neighborhood kid. The boy started reading. A few chapters in, he suddenly looked up and asked, "Wait, what happens next? Give me the next page." For Isaac, that moment felt almost magical. Most of the time, he felt invisible, just another awkward little kid hiding in his books. But now, someone was waiting for his next page. And somewhere around that rainy afternoon in Brooklyn, Isaac Asimov discovered something that would shape the rest of his life. Writing wasn't just a way to escape into other worlds, it was a way to pull other people into those worlds. Then, on his 16th birthday, Isaac came home to find a heavy metal object sitting on his desk, a used mechanical typewriter. For a struggling immigrant family scraping by during the Great Depression, this was a massive sacrifice. Judah had spent $10 on it, a painful, significant amount of money for the family at the time. And if you think about it, there's something incredibly moving about that gesture. Because this deeply practical man who spent every waking hour worrying about rent, groceries, and survival had quietly realized that his son's obsession for stories was not going away. So instead of fighting it, this very, very traditional father encouraged it. And the moment Isaac pressed his fingers onto those keys, he fell completely in love. The heavy resistance of the metal arms, the sharp clacking echoing through the room, the speed. For a boy whose mind had always moved faster than the world around him, the typewriter finally felt like a machine which could keep up with his thoughts. And once Isaac started typing, he never truly stopped. For the next 7 decades, the sound of those mechanical keys striking paper would become the permanent background score of Isaac Asimov's life.